I pulled into my mother's driveway just as the sky began to bruise into twilight, streaks of lavender and deep rose fading behind the tall maples. The house looked the same as it had when I left at 19, white clapboard siding, flower boxes brimming with marigolds, and that stubborn creak in the front porch rail I could hear even from the car. I killed the engine and reached for my tote, my phone buzzing like a restless bee inside. It was a text from the office, another contract to approve before morning, but for once work could wait. Something in my chest, call it instinct, or the uneasy echo of a daughter who once lived here, told me to come early. That's when I saw her. My 6-year-old, Lily, balanced on the wooden porch railing as if she were a tightrope walker. Her tiny sneakers gripped the narrow beam, her arms stretched wide for balance. For a heartbeat, everything inside me went still. The rush of traffic from the highway behind me, the late summer cicadas, even the whisper of my own breath. Lily, my voice cracked, sharp and pleading at once. She turned, eyes wide with a mischief that sent fear skittering down my spine. Behind the screen door, my mother's shadow shifted, but didn't move fast enough. I ran, silk blouse snagging on the car's side mirror, heart pounding a rhythm I hadn't felt since the night I swore I'd never come back. The sight of Lily wobbling on that narrow rail was more than a jolt of terror. It was a flash of memory, a door to the past I'd kept carefully sealed. Because once, I had been that girl, teetering, daring the world to notice. I was 17 the last time I stood on this porch, my suitcase scuffed and half-zipped, the August air sticky against my skin. My mother, Marlene, leaned against the doorway with crossed arms, her floral apron still tied tight. She had the same unyielding stare she wore whenever she thought I was being dramatic, which, according to her, was most of my teenage life. "You'll come crawling back," she said, her voice flat as if she were reading a grocery list. "This world will chew you up, Natalie. You don't have what it takes to make it alone." The lump in my throat ached, but I swallowed hard, gripping the handle of my suitcase until my knuckles whitened. "I'd rather be chewed up than stay here and disappear." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "Your big city dreams won't pay the bills. And college, who's paying for that? Not me." Each word stung like a slap. My hands trembled, but I forced myself to keep my chin high. That was when Grandma June shuffled in from the kitchen, her silver buns slightly loose, eyes as soft as worn denim. She pressed something into my palm, a small brass key on a faded blue ribbon. "Your great-grandfather built a hope chest for me when I was your age," she whispered, close enough that Marlene couldn't hear. "Inside, you'll find a letter and a small start. It's not much, but it's yours. Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do." Tears threatened to spill, but I clenched my jaw. That key felt warm, almost alive, in my fist. I lifted my suitcase, the porch rail creaking underfoot. "I'm not coming back," I said, though my heart pounded with the uncertainty of my own courage. Marlene turned away, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Go on, then. See how far that attitude gets you." Grandma June's hand squeezed mine one last time. "Go make your own world, Natalie. And remember, you already belong to yourself." The screen door banged shut behind me, and I stepped off the porch into a night heavy with crickets and the scent of cut grass. My fear was a knot in my chest, but beneath it burned something hotter, something that, even now, years later, still kept me standing. The first weeks away from that porch were a blur of late-night buses, secondhand textbooks, and the thin ache of homesickness I pretended not to feel. I rented a tiny attic room in downtown Columbus, a space no bigger than my mother's pantry, where the walls slanted so steeply I had to crouch to reach the closet. The radiator hissed like a grumpy cat, and when winter came, the windows iced over so thick I scraped them with a credit card. But the brass key from Grandma June never left my pocket. At night, I would roll it between my fingers, the cool metal grounding me when doubt whispered too loudly. I worked double shifts, waitressing at a 24-hour diner before dawn and stocking shelves at a campus bookstore after classes. The smell of burnt coffee and floor wax became my signature perfume. On the hardest nights, when exhaustion bent my shoulders and tuition bills loomed like storm clouds, I'd unfold the letter I'd found inside that hope chest the weekend I arrived. June's handwriting, looping and sure, read, "The world won't hand you belonging. You build it with your own two hands. And when you doubt yourself, remember, you are the granddaughter of a woman who never asked permission to shine." Those words stitched me back together more times than I can count. One semester turned into two, and then into a journalism degree that no one, including me, had believed I could finish. I started as an unpaid intern at a small city magazine, chasing coffee orders and rewriting event blurbs no one would read. But I listened. I watched. And when an editor missed a deadline for a feature on local politics, I quietly wrote a draft and slid it onto her desk. She called me into her office the next morning, her glasses perched on her head like a crown. "You wrote this?" she asked, tapping the pages with a manicured nail. My heart stammered. "Yes, ma'am. I thought maybe it could help." A slow smile broke across her face. "It's better than anything we had. We're running it." That article led to a byline. The byline led to a string of investigations that caught the attention of a national outlet. By 26, I was on staff at the Beacon, the youngest investigative reporter in their newsroom. By 29, my series on corporate environmental fraud earned a regional award and an invitation to speak at conferences where seasoned journalists twice my age asked for advice. I kept my success quiet when I called home. Marlene never asked much, and I offered even less, small updates, neutral as weather reports. Lily came into my life a few years later, and motherhood only deepened my resolve. My daughter would grow up knowing a woman's worth was not measured by who doubted her. Even as my bank account grew and my bylines spread across the country, I never sent postcards of my victories back to the house with a creaky portrayal. Some triumphs, I decided, were best revealed in person, when the moment was right. And tonight, as I stared at my own daughter swaying on that same railing, I felt the weight of every mile I'd walked to stand here again, stronger, unshaken, and finally ready to face what I'd left behind. "Lily." I scooped her off the railing and hugged her so tightly she squealed. Her giggles melted some of the panic clenching my chest, but when I looked up, my mother stood in the doorway, hands on hips, face unreadable. "Relax, Natalie," Marlene said. "She wasn't in danger. She's got good balance, like you did." "Good balance doesn't make a fall softer." I shot back, my voice sharper than I intended. Lily wriggled down and ran toward the garden, chasing a firefly. The sight of her ponytail bouncing in the dusky light made my heart ache with both love and a strange, old anger. I stepped onto the porch, the wood groaning under my weight. "Why didn't you stop her?" I asked. Marlene shrugged, wiping her hands on her apron. "Kids need to test themselves. Can't coddle them forever." Her casual tone scraped against old scars. "That's what you always said, isn't it? That the world would toughen me up. That I wasn't ready." Marlene's eyes flickered. "You left. You made your choices." I took a slow breath, the warm evening air smelling faintly of marigolds and cut grass, exactly as it had the night I left. "Yes. And I made a life. One you know almost nothing about." She gave a small, skeptical snort. "You've got a job, I suppose. Some apartment in the city." I smiled, slow, deliberate. "More than an apartment. I own the townhouse I live in, and the building next door." Her head tilted slightly, but she said nothing. "I'm an investigative journalist at the Beacon. Last year, I won the Heartland Award for my environmental series." My voice stayed even, but inside my pulse thudded. "And I started my own nonprofit, Clean Slate. We've secured millions in grants to fight the very companies that think small towns like ours don't matter." Marlene's arms fell from her hips. For the first time, she blinked as if the porch light had suddenly grown too bright. "You," she whispered. "Yes, me." The cicadas hummed their slow summer hymn. Lily came bounding back, a captured firefly glowing in her jar, the tiny light pulsing like a heartbeat. "I did it without your help," I continued, softer now. And I did it while raising a daughter who'll never doubt that she belongs anywhere she chooses to stand. Marlene's mouth opened, then closed. Her gaze wandered past me to Lily, who held her jar up like a lantern. For a long moment, only the crickets filled the silence. Marlene began, voice unsteady. I never thought. She stopped and looked down, the lines around her mouth deeper than I remembered. I thought I was making you strong. You were, I said, surprising myself. Just not the way you imagined. The porch light buzzed overhead. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the brass key. The blue ribbon now faded to a silvery gray. I held it out between us. Grandma June believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself, I said. This key has been with me every step. It opened more than a chest. It opened the life you thought I couldn't build. Marlene's eyes softened, wet at the edges. For once, the sharpness I had known all my life melted into something fragile, something almost like regret. Lily skipped back to us, holding the jar high. Look, Mommy, it's like a little star. I crouched to meet her eyes. Yes, sweetheart. A star that shines wherever it wants. When I rose, I met my mother's gaze again. And in the quiet between us, the years of silence shifted. No longer a wall, but a door. For a long breath, the porch was quiet except for the summer insects. Marlene kept her eyes fixed on the firefly jar in Lily's hands, as if it held the answer to everything she hadn't said. I leaned against the post where Lily had balanced moments earlier. Mom, I began, keeping my voice low. I didn't come here to prove anything. But I also can't keep pretending the past didn't happen. Marlene's chin trembled. I thought if I made you tough, you'd survive. The world's cruel. I never wanted you to depend on anyone. I exhaled slowly. You were right about the world. But cruelty isn't strength. And silence isn't love. Her eyes flicked to mine, uncertain. I want us to have a relationship, I said. But it has to be different. If you want to be part of Lily's life, and mine, there are things that have to change. Marlene folded her arms, then slowly let them fall. What things? First, I said, steady but gentle. No more tearing people down when you're afraid. Lily can't grow up hearing that she isn't enough. She needs to know her dreams are valid, no matter how big. Marlene's throat worked, as if swallowing a stone. Second, I continued, I need honesty. Not perfection. Just truth. If you're hurt, say it. If you're proud, say that too. We can't heal if we keep pretending. A breeze rustled the marigolds. My mother's eyes glistened in the porch light. And finally, I said, holding up the brass key between us, this grandma's gift reminds me that we all belong to ourselves. You have to belong to yourself, too. Find something that's just yours, not defined by what you gave up or what you regret. A class, a project, something that makes you feel alive again. Her shoulders sagged. You're asking me to change after all these years. I'm asking you to grow, I replied softly. For Lily. And for you. The firefly jar pulsed in Lily's small hands, a tiny lighthouse of gold. Marlene looked at her granddaughter, then back at me. And if I try? I smiled, warmth rising in my chest. Then you'll always have a place with us. But it has to be a place built on love, not fear. She reached out, her hand hovering near the key, then drawing back. I don't know if I can fix everything I broke. You don't have to fix the past, I said, pressing the key gently into her palm. Just start from today. Her fingers closed around it, trembling. For the first time since I was 17, I saw something in her face I'd never seen before, humility wrapped in hope. Lily looked up, her jar glowing like a captured constellation. Grandma, she whispered, can we catch more stars? Marlene gave a small, unsteady smile. Yes, sweetheart. I'd like that. And as the night deepened around us, I felt the porch, once a place of parting, become a place of possibility. Later that night, after Lily had fallen asleep in the spare bedroom, the same room where I once traced constellations on the ceiling with glow-in-the-dark stickers, Marlene and I sat side by side on the porch steps. The board still creaked, but now the sound felt like an old friend clearing its throat rather than a warning. She turned the brass key over in her hand, the faded ribbon trailing like a tiny flag. "I kept thinking toughness was love," she said quietly. "I thought if I pushed you, you'd never need anyone. I didn't see how lonely that would make you or me." I rested my chin on my knees, watching the fireflies blink in the dark yard. I learned to stand on my own, but I never stopped wanting a mother who believed I could. Marlene's shoulders sagged, and for a long while we listened to the summer night. Finally she whispered, "I'm proud of you, Natalie. Not because of the awards or the buildings you own, but because you made a life that's yours." The words settled over me like a soft blanket, soothing places I hadn't realized were still raw. "I'm proud of me, too," I admitted, surprising myself. And for the first time, pride didn't feel like a rebellion, it felt like home. Marlene placed the key in my palm. "Your grandmother always said this belonged to the one who would break the pattern. I think she knew it would be you." I closed my fingers around the metal, still warm from her touch. "Then let's both break it," I said. "For Lily." She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. When I finally stood to leave, Lily stirred and padded sleepily onto the porch, rubbing her eyes. The firefly jar glowed faintly in her small hands. "Mommy," she murmured, "Grandma says we can catch more stars tomorrow." I kissed her forehead, inhaling the sweet scent of shampoo and summer air. "That's exactly what we'll do." As we stepped into the quiet night, the brass key gleamed in the porch light, Grandma June's silent blessing, a reminder of the women before me and the woman I had become. I glanced back once, seeing my mother framed in the doorway, her smile soft and unguarded. For the first time in years, the house no longer felt like a place I had escaped. It felt like a place I had finally, truly reclaimed.